Hey y'all, so this has been sitting so heavy on my spirit. As I was driving the other day, I was thinking in my heart, I was like, God, I refuse to put life into something that you do not have for me. I refuse to birth something that you do not have for me. And where I got this revelation from was because I was thinking about how me and my mother and my family all moved to another state when I was really, really young, and we grew up in like the inner city. And my mama was like, I think that we were supposed to move to a different area but the same state. And I see that the impact that living in this area now has. So the impact that it had on all of our lives, like literally each and every one of her children, my mom's children, have had experiences that we will carry with us for a lifetime, that tried, where the enemy tried to steal our destiny because we were not in the allotted territory that the Lord told us to be in. And so as I was driving today, running some errands, all of this, I ended up clicking on my audiobook, and my audiobook started on a Chuck Missler audio tape where he was speaking about where the people had to go to their allotted territory. And if they went to a different terrain because they were not supposed to go outside of God's will, if they went to a different terrain because it was easier, then they would basically be forfeiting their territory and taking another territory, and they would ultimately be outside of God's will. They would be going against the Torah, going against. Recently I read a story about Ruth on my Bible study. I went through Ruth, and that was one of the first questions I ever had when I was reading the story of Ruth. I was like, God, why would you allow Naomi and her husband to go through those type of situations? Why did you allow all the men to die? And the Lord was showing me that they were outside of the house of bread. They were outside of the will of God. They were outside of where God called them to go and where God called them to be. So just like in Joshua 1, he says, be careful that you stay where I tell you to. You know, every place where your foot treads, I have given to you, but don't go to the right or to the left. At that point, when we go to the right or to the left, the enemy has access to us. That's why the Lord instructs us not to go. I was just sitting with God, and I was like, God, I don't even want to birth a child outside of your will, because I can't even imagine raising a child and letting the world get them because I raised this child outside of your will, knowing full fledged that I'm in Christ now, knowing your will and knowing your ways. I don't want to do a thing outside of your will. Outside of your will. Now, when we're out in the world, we do a lot of things outside of God's will, and God is able to bless you. He's able to cover you where you made mistakes. But knowingly making a mistake as a Christian, you got to count the cost of that. Count the cost of not following Christ. You can be so caught up in rushing, running, proving, doing, gaining, winning, you know what I'm saying, performing, that we forget that we have a specified time. There's a time and a place for everything. Like Ecclesiastes says, there's a time to plant, there's a time to build, there's a time for things to die. I had to get on here and say that because as I was driving some more, I listened to this lady on TikTok, and she was describing this through the life of Sarah. She was talking about how Sarah birthed a counterfeit. Sarah birthed the Ishmael, and the Lord was telling me about 3 to 6 months ago, do not birth an Ishmael. Do not birth an Ishmael because you can't wait. Do not birth an Ishmael because you don't want to wait on me, because you don't want to listen to what I have to say. Do not birth an Ishmael. You're not going to like it. You're going to regret it. God bless y'all, and y'all have a blessed day.